Welcome to another meeting of the Lorain County Commissioners, broadcast exclusively on your Lorain County Community College education station. The Lorain County Commissioners cordially invite you to see the meetings live and in person every Thursday morning. The meetings are located in the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue in downtown Elyria.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk?
There are no scheduled appointments today for resolutions, job and family services bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Investments.
I never saw a sheet.
I didn't see one either.
Was there
Sorry,
one?
Maybe I didn't do them then. No investments then.
Oh, I like that. Okay, that's how we take care of things, all right.
Appropriations.
That's good, Teresa.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes. There was one appropriation for flower baskets, and it was for $5,000, but the requisition had $2,500.
I think the company note with it said in for other.
Yeah, but what other?
items.
What other?
There is no other items at this time, Commissioner. One of the things that we've been trying to do to improve some of our efficiency and cut down the paperwork was that when we do move money into an account
You need it?
for purchases, we move the amount of money that's anticipated to be needed for the year. Anything above the purchase of the flower baskets that will be required will have to come back to this board to be purchased, so you control the purchase. But I just simply can't see moving 100 here or 200 there and doing all the associated paperwork every time we need to make a purchase. So you have control of that. It's just putting a block of money into that sub-account for future expenditures. And those future expenditures will come back to this board for approval before the money can be used.
Okay, but the requisition says $2,550 for the city of Elyria for the flower
Correct.
baskets.
Correct.
Isn't that what the $5,000 is for also?
It'll come out of the account. That account's being funded to $5,000. That's a sub-account. It's being, but only $2,550 will be used for the flowers.
But the appropriation says, Jim, that the county contribution for downtown flower baskets and other miscellaneous.
Right. The other miscellaneous are potential unidentified future need.
For downtown Elyria?
No. The sub-account is for those type of payments. I'm not sure what other issues would come around that we would want to pay for, but Shelley, why don't you come up to the podium? I think I've explained it correctly, right?
Yes, you have.
So when we move money now, instead of moving the exact amount that's needed, we're moving blocks of money.
Right.
So that we don't have to do another appropriation should we need to make another purchase or if the board desires to spend additional funds in any area. So this will not increase the appropriation for the flowers whatsoever.
No, only the $25.50 would come out for the flower baskets. Any of the remaining money would sit in that account until a miscellaneous purchase would come up, which would have to go in front of the board prior to being expended out of the account.
But this seems to be earmarked for downtown Elyria. According to the appropriation, county contribution for downtown flower baskets.
Downtown flower
But
baskets
then the
and other miscellaneous. It would be any other miscellaneous that would
For
occur
downtown.
any other miscellaneous that we may have between now and the end of the year.
Why don't we
We've just set aside a small portion of money.
Why don't we just line that out?
I think so.
And then
What are you lining out, please?
downtown Elyria flower baskets. Actually, it's not germane. The transfer of money into the account is to be used for various purchases. That's just a brief explanation of why we're even contemplating move money. So it's not necessary. We can just line it out, and there'll be no misunderstanding about it in the future.
So we line that out, and we're spending $5,000 for flowers, $2,500 for the city of Elyria, and the other $2,500
No.
for...
We could make the wording on the appropriation to read just various miscellaneous needs. one of those various needs may be the flower baskets.
Well, what's the desire of the board?
I don't have any problem with the appropriation the way it stands.
I'll make an exception. I'm not supporting it at all, so,
You're not supporting it at all.
so that's the desire of the board.
Well, Mary Jo, it seems that you and I are in charge of this issue, so how do you want to handle it?
If we contribute the $2,500 for downtown Elyria, which we've done in the past, contribute to those flowers, I would suggest that the appropriation be reduced to the $2,500,
$550.
2,550. And that would be for the flowers for downtown Elyria.
Fine. I'll support that.
Is that it for that issue? Because I have an issue with number 4. I couldn't, in the packet, I couldn't find what
Which
the...
is, do you know?
No, I don't, because it said $4,500 for professional services. There was no definition of professional services. I looked inside the packet, I couldn't find anything in there. It said to allow payment of professional services. I was trying to find what that was for.
Early start.
So they don't have to do anything to this basically?
Again, let me try to... Let me try to explain what the process we're going on. This is simply putting money into various accounts so that it can be accessed through the requisition process.
Okay, so the way it read right here, it looked like there was one service they were paying for, but now that it says professional services, I understand now.
Okay.
So basically, just to make sure you're not short.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions or anything?
No.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
With those changes, of course.
And Mr. Moore? Just with the exception?
Yeah, just sign it, please.
Yeah, Shelley will bring over a new form, so we'll have a clean form with the changes on it for you to sign right after the board.
Okay, thank you.
Transfers?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
I do not believe there's any advances or repayments. Requisitions?
So moved.
I'll second, but I did have a question. Number 819, oh, that was, we just
Just
did
double
that,
tap.
that's okay. Okay, that's it.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye?
Mr. Moore?
Aye with exception 819.
Travel expenses?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Bills?
So, second?
Discussion? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I don't believe there's personnel unless you're going to go into executive session.
I didn't see anything.
see a form.
There are no personnel issues for this board.
I'm sure there's issues, we just don't have them on the vote on today.
There was one issue. Mrs. Reynolds called me last night at home in regards to Howard and something about his health insurance. I don't know if you want to talk about it in public or go into
No,
executive
I
session.
don't want to talk about it in public, and it's something the administrator should take care of. Is there something about this issue that you don't know about already?
Well, I'm completely aware of the issue.
Which thing you should talk about?
Oh, I just asked if he knew about the issue.
If-
that's all.
if the-
I don't think we should talk about it in public.
If the
Well,
board wants...
I want to know if he knows, okay? Don't answer other than the fact that you know.
If-
I don't know what the issue is, so that's...
I don't know either.
Is it a decision that the commissioners have to make?
I think we made it.
It's, no, this is a...
Another one?
Yes.
Okay. Should we go into executive session to
If we're
discuss
going-
this issue?
It should only take a few minutes.
Mr. Cortez?
If we're going to discuss the issue, we should go into executive session because it deals with personal health care data of one of our employees. So therefore, at this time, I request an executive session to discuss the issue with regards to Mr. Reynolds and his situation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Under Commissioners, number 10, authorize release of retainage in the amount of $5,741.80 to Lake Erie Construction Company, Norwalk, Ohio, for work performed on Lorain County Guardrail Project Phase 2. Project is complete and all necessary paperwork has been received.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Under Golden Acres, instruct clerk to advertise for bids for the furnishing of all labor, material, and equipment for the repair and resurfacing of existing driving parking areas and create 40 new parking spaces at Golden Acres County Home. This notice will be published in the Chronicle Telegram and Morning Journal on June 3rd and 10th, and bids to be open at 2 p.m. on June 24, 2003 in the Commissioners' Public Hearing Room.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, but this doesn't note the funding source.
The, any work done at Golden Acres is from the county home funding. You could add that to the resolution, but their resolutions are kept in a separate journal. We don't journalize their resolutions anymore. Didn't we used to journalize
We
them?
did.
When did we stop doing that?
This year.
Good.
Okay.
Hooray. I've
then
been
we-
asking for that for years, excuse me.
Then why don't we just go ahead and modify the resolution to indicate that the funding source will be from available county home funds. Is that suitable to you, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
Why don't we speak to the issue of the need for this, maybe while you're talking about it? Could you expand a little bit? I'm not so concerned about where it's being paid from as the need for it.
There's been a need for additional parking out there for some time. And if you've gone past there on a busy day, between the employees and the families of the residents parking there, you'll see the full circle filled with cars. In addition to the lot, pardon me, there was some concern that we weren't providing adequate parking for quite a bit of time, and this should alleviate some of those stresses out there, specifically in the front of the building, so that people can use the grounds in the gazebo directly across from the front entrance. So I'm hoping that the 40 is enough. We're going, at the same time, going to be resurfacing the existing lot that's in need of a little bit of maintenance to preserve it for the next few years.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under Workforce Development Agency, authorize the appointments of David A. Updegraff and Homer A. Burden to the Lorain County Workforce Investment Board effective May 29, 2003.
So moved.
Should there be an expiration on this?
Yes, Commissioners,
There's not a second, I'm just asking. So, I'll second for discussion. There we go.
I didn't move quickly enough. I was
All right.
going to ask that this be put off till next week. Bill Ogle and myself have been talking about appointments to these boards, and we've been making the appointments without any term of the appointment. And I don't know that that's necessarily in the best interest of that board and this county, that we don't have some understanding
life
of how long.
appointments?
Like the
Well, the
Supreme
way they
Court.
stand right now, they could be considered life appointments. There's no termination of the appointment. So we need to look at how we are appointing to that board and under what guidelines we are, so that we can establish some timeframes for a term of the appointment. And I'll try to get to that before our next board meeting, or no later than the board meeting after that, because we've got a pretty tight schedule.
Okay, I
I'll
will
withdraw my
withdraw
second.
my motion.
Under Children's Services 13, authorize various personnel in Lorain County Children's Services Department to utilize their Shell Oil Gasoline Credit Card not to exceed $200 and the agency's MasterCard not to exceed $2,500 respectively for the year 2003.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Under Domestic Relations, approve Lorain County Domestic Relations Court to apply for funding from the Cleveland Browns Foundation in the amount of $5,000 to establish a family court, a diversity program on focusing on truant youth in Lorain County to be monitored and brought before a judge on a weekly basis for positive intervention, and the two goals are to increase school attendance and improve academic achievement in Lorain County. There is no cash match required.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I talked with Deb Tansey yesterday, and she assured me that this will be, that there won't be a need for any general fund in the future, so I want to make that a part of the motion.
Any further discussion? Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under Engineer, Release the Rain Tree Development for the one-year maintenance period on the Carlisle Farm subdivision. All work has been completed and Cecil Lane will become the responsibility of Carlisle Township.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Number 16, and there is a correction. It is Olmsted Falls, not City of North Olmsted. Approve and enter into contract between Lorain County Board of Commissioners and the City of City of Olmsted Falls to utilize a portion of the city's sanitary sewer system due to Columbia West River Treatment Plant and Columbia Station being abandoned, and redirect the wastewater to the Celery Wastewater Treatment Plant operated by Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. $56,643 tap-in fee is required from Lorain County prior to connection, but will be recovered through assessments when construction of the lift station and force main is completed.
So moved.
I'll second.
Where does that 56,000 come from?
Well, Commissioners, I see that our esteemed sanitary engineer is here in the audience, hiding behind Mr. Snodgrass. I don't believe that fund is available. That level of funding is available in the sanitary engineers fund right now. We will have to front that money like we do on a lot of construction projects, and then it will be recovered upon completion of the necessary construction to make the tie-in. But this is part of the long-term strategy to do away with these package plants and tie into main waste treatment facilities. We are doing a lot of projects. The budget department is watching the funding for full recovery. So when we go out and we either do a bond or however we structure the financing, we will recover this. But we are going to need, roughly $57,000 in advance somewhere along the line to make this payment. I'm sure that the bill will come due when we get closer to construction. Is that correct, Mr. Carney?
Yeah.
But this is part of the long-term strategy over in Columbia Township.
How do we make sure we get our money back, though? I mean, the tap-in fees are going to the sewer district. I mean, are we doing it alone? Or
It'll be part of, we have to go to assessment hearings. We have a long way to go with this. We have bond counsel working on various aspects of how we're going to recover on these construction projects. But we can't do any of that until we have a deal in place. And the deal, this is the agreement. Should we not go forward with this, obviously we're not going to pay Olmsted Falls the tap-in fee. So as we get closer to maturity of the project, we'll have more information from the Commission. But rest assured, we'll have full recovery. And any monies that you use in these projects will be treated as advances so that they can be recovered.
Okay.
Okay,
According
this
to
is,
the map, this is affecting 17 homes. It's a service area that was outlined. Is that correct?
Right, but there's going to be more property captured on the way to Olmsted Falls. Maybe, Ken, you may want to come forward and, sorry. So it won't just be the 17 homes that are going to be,
Well, I'd like to know. Thank you.
this is certainly an important question.
Good morning. Yes, there's additional 19 homes available if they so desire to tap into the system, but that's between the treatment plant and the borderline of Columbia Township. That's available to them, but only at their request, and if they initiate the individual construction that's needed on their lot to enter into the force main. It's been done before, but we're not counting on that as a product. We're not counting on that as anything in terms of a dollar figure. We're utilizing the 17 homes existing in the subdivision alone.
so those 17 homes will be assessed, and this $56,000 will be paid back from the assessments.
That's the intent at this point, without the benefit of the public hearings, which would incorporate my search for grants and loans at zero interest. Our process is available to us.
So this may not, there may not be a need for general fund money in this if you go out and find some grants,
As Mr. Cortez mentioned, the need would be the upfront money to initiate the construction,
which would be the
A note.
$56,000.
a note for construction.
Well, this tap-in fee is a one-time fee to Olmsted Falls. The construction is going to have more cost. So this is not the only cost involved. So I don't know what our estimate was on the construction cost. Do you recall, off the top of your head, roughly?
Total figure maxed out at $231,000.
And I thought, though, that we were going, since we're running a sewer line past those additional properties, that we were going to assess all the properties on the way to Olmsted Falls. If we don't, this could get very costly.
That's an option. However, the deletion of the force main to be replaced by sanitary sewer is in itself an expense that's above this cost, and we have that option to discuss in the public hearing. But at this point, we're not attempting to sanitary sewer the remaining 19 homes with a gravity sewer. We're looking at force main. It's much cheaper.
Not to put you on the spot, Ken, but that's almost, with the all-in cost, almost $20,000 for property.
If you develop a sanitary sewer for the existing 19 homes that are abutting the individual West Ridge Road, Columbia West River Road, we may not have those available to us to tap in. There may be some that are over 200 feet away. There's some vacant lots available, but we won't receive any income for that. We have that option, Jim. We have that option to put a force main in, which is what we have available to us now. The agreement as existing, the agreement that you're approving today, is only for the acceptance of sewage into the Olmsted Falls system with Neosord's approval, which we have last week. And using those signatures and using those approvals, that permits us to enter into a permit to install to the Ohio to the EPA. But to answer your question, Jim, the sanitary sewer to be installed, if it was an option, would be very, very expensive for those 19 homes. Our option is to delete and abandon an existing sewage treatment plant.
How many homes does that treatment plant service now?
I believe it's 17.
I know the plant is in bad condition. It has been for years, and something has to be done with it, but I don't know. Are we getting the cart before the horse here? Maybe we should have the hearings before we agree to this.
No, the hearings have to be taking place after the
Right, and if we don't go forward with the project, we don't pay the $56,000. So that, I did indicate that earlier. I mean, I guess there's a couple of things we still need to discuss, but we're a long way from putting any pipe in the ground right now.
I guess my question about the 17 homes was, I read the agreement, but I'm not sure that did the agreement limit it to these 17 homes? Or is there the possibility to expand this if, in fact, it would be advantageous to the project to do that?
Yes, it's expandable with acceptance of council of Olmsted Falls.
Well, I want to go back. Then this agreement is just for the 17 homes?
That's
and
correct.
Nothing else? Not even the 19 that you're talking about?
No, Commissioner.
Those 19 are outside the county though, right?
No, the 19 is within Columbia Township,
Oh, okay.
along Columbia West River Road.
Okay.
This is the first step in a process.
Oh, and I think it's a good step. I just wanted to know. That's why I asked.
We won't be able to get EPA approval without signatures on the agreements.
Signatures from whom?
I'm sorry?
Signatures from whom? This board or?
That's correct.
Do we have a reasonable belief that we're going to be able to recover the construction cost and the tap-in fee cost on this project?
Yes, we do.
From where? Recover it from where? This says through assessment. Do you have some other ideas in mind?
I don't know, Commissioner. I apparently missed something here. I thought we were assessing more property owners along the way. We got a lot of sewer projects going on, so I may have lost track of the bubble on this one. But,
Can you find out if there are any other grants available or any other money available before we move on this?
Those grants are available upon application in September, approval in January, receiving the money spring of 2004. That's a process we intend to aggressively pursue, yes.
But maybe
However,
we could do that before.
I would not recommend waiting 1 year for this. I would not recommend that. The process for grants and loans, zero-interest loans, are available to us. But we will not receive EPA approval or any of that nature.
zero-interest loans are, we don't have a problem financing a project like this, especially if it's a revenue project that can be assessed back. But the cost for the amount of people covered is going to be substantial. But I mean, I don't know that we have any other options. I agree with you. I know that we're under EPA problems with those package plants. I'm not sure that I'm going to, guarantee the board that we're going to be able to recover all these costs and assess these homeowners for the full recovery.
EPA have any money for this? I mean, they're the ones that find the
They
problems with
actually
the
even
plant.
charge us to submit the plans to fix the problem.
There's the money. It's much simpler to go to the Ohio Public Works Commission for 0% loans, and my rule of thumb is if a 0% loan over 20 years is just generally equal to about 50% of that number is a grant. But no, EPA is very...
What about those other plants that we've talked about? What do you call them?
sewage
No,
treatment
not
plants.
no, the ones,
Schaefer system.
Schaefer systems and those type of systems.
That wouldn't be available for this type of construction because it's surrounded by small parcels of land already developed and it's contiguous to an existing river.
Because I'm thinking if we fund something like this, this is going to start precedents. We're going to be funding all kinds of sewer projects through the general fund.
Unfortunately, Commissioner, on some of these package plants, we own them, and we
understand
simply
that.
don't, we simply have a responsibility to do so. What I suggest as a recommendation is that the board go ahead and approve this contract, but that I sit down with Mr. Carney and his people, and we talk about how we're going to structure the financing before we go to the next level. We need to do some prep work. This contract's one we don't need to move forward, and it has to come back to you again before we do construction. And we don't have to pay this $57,000 until we actually get to a construction phase, right?
That's correct.
So this is just a step along the way, but we'll still have a few more steps where we can revisit this. It may be premature at this point to hold up on doing this. It doesn't cost us anything at this point to continue the planning process.
But you're signing a contract.
Well, we're signing a contract saying if we
It says
do...
approve and enter into a contract. Is there any wording in that contract that says that we can cancel?
Teresa, you want to take it out?
That's what you're asking us, or that's what you're saying right now, correct? If we disagree? I'm afraid if we don't fund it, then we're in violation of a contract, that's all.
I understand. I was just asking. Jerry looked it over, but
You didn't look it over that angle though, but, right?
we didn't, to be candid, no.
Why don't we hold this for further study?
Oh, here, do you want to pass that around? or-
It says term.
What's
There's
that?
no- There is a term in there, but it doesn't say an expiration or cancellation.
So just give it to Jerry? You want to look it over or no?
We're going to go into exec. Why don't we just hold this, and if Jerry has time to look it over, maybe we can revisit it when we come back out of exec. Or we could, we could do
Yeah,
it
we don't want
next
to
week.
put him on the spot.
Okay.
There's a lot of pages there.
I'll be available if you need me.
Yeah.
Can we wait till next week? Is it?
By all means, no problem.
Okay.
Withdraw my second.
Try you first.
Yes.
Thanks, Ken. I'm sure that you'll be back up in a minute.
Number 17, instruct the clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held on June 19, 2003 at 10:15 a.m. in the Commissioners' Public Hearing Room to consider the changing of the name for Dunham Road to West Dunham Road, Grafton Township, Ohio, due mostly to 911 purposes. This notice will be published in the Chronicle Telegram on June 5th and 12th, 2003.
This request emanated from Medina County Commissioner Stephen Hamley in response to these residents, so also move.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
18, accept petition and map for the proposed vacation of the existing road right-of-way being part of El Camino Court as recorded in Crest Haven Subdivision Number 6, Elyria Township. The engineer states the description does follow the area of roadway and was split by the Ohio Turnpike ramp, and the north portion is isolated from the south. This notice will be published in the Chronicle Telegram on June 4th and 16, 2003. A viewing will take place on June 25th at 10 a.m., and the public hearing is scheduled for July 10, 2003 at 10:15 a.m.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah. Ken, since this is under your heading. Are we looking just to vacate a road on this one, on number 18? Is that what we're doing? Number 18, we're vacating these roads?
Has to accept a petition for the abutting property owners to vacate an existing 6-foot right-of-way. Yes, is the answer to your question.
This doesn't vacate it.
No, it's just part of the process.
Just accept a petition.
Right.
It's the first step in a 5-step process.
Oh, really?
We have to go out there and look
Well,
at,
generally.
view it yet.
And then there's a public hearing after the viewing.
That's correct.
And this was submitted by Larry Township trustees
Oh, by the
as your
trustees?
request, correct?
Okay, so that's the proper way to do it?
You haven't been
Public
treated any
hearing's
of
to
these.
follow.
Oh, I have been.
Well, have you
Well, I-
vacated anything since you've been
Well, I
here?
tried.
Well, I mean roads.
Yeah, I tried. Tried that too, buddy. And your,
I'm working it out.
well, okay, I mean, we discussed a right-of-way issue about last year regarding the Flint Ridge issue. There was is this the same type of issue, or is this guy has something involving the turnpike? That's why I didn't know.
No, generally, this is a small 60-foot street that's been in existence for years and years and
Right.
years, never to be used, never to be proposed to be used, because additional outlets and inlets and ingresses have been built within
Right.
that 40 or 50-year period.
All right.
Homeowners are taking care of it, mowing the lawns,
Right.
useless for everyone, they're just vacating 30-foot split between the property owners.
All right.
But we do require a petition for that process, and there's a public hearing involved, and easement check, and I'll check the...
So you still have, because the letter I received from Mr. Twining stated that, however, the final decision would rest with the Board of County Commissioners. So I mean, we still have to go through the public hearing, or can't we just make the decision and be done with it?
Public hearing is required.
Are they required for
Vacation of property.
Yeah, it's
Viewing?
part of the code
Okay.
process.
Well, no, this issue was March of 2002, and it kind of got, basically was told that it couldn't do anything, but if the residents want to petition and do this, then I'll advise them to do that, so.
You're talking about something else.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about something else.
Same example, same procedure, you're correct.
Right, but the way it was stopped here was basically, nobody agreed with it, so I want to make sure that I can call back the residents and advise what's going to take for them to get it done, that's all.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Thanks, Aaron. That's all, Mr.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Ennis wants to
We
say
don't
something.
actually have to do a viewing of this.
We don't? Why are we doing that then? It was pretty
I
cold the
thought it
last
was
time
in
we went
code.
out there. It was pretty cold in the wintertime. Has it changed, Jerry?
It'll be July 10th, that's,
No, I want to know though.
I
Has
thought I took it
the
from the code that...
code process
No.
changed?
Sorry, I was listening to Teresa.
We don't take it from the code, those steps, or no?
This is just a change of a road name.
No.
Oh,
no,
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 We're on
no,
number
something
18,
else.
Jerry.
I was reading the other...
I don't know,
We're
you're the
vacating,
contract.
Jerry.
All right,
We're
I was
vacating.
reading the other article.
Hey, guys, we're on 18, so.
Everybody listen
I
up.
know, you guys are at the sewer.
This is the vacation,
I know, when
Jerry.
you start talking about sewers, it gets so exciting, it's hard to keep up with everything else. So. Vacating roads, sewers, woo-hoo.
All part of the job.
Yeah. I don't think I made the motion, did I?
No, I was
No,
just
half
waiting
an hour
for
ago,
further
Mr. Vacy
discussion.
and I.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Vacy?
I'll
Aye.
just second
Blair.
for the vote.
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Number 19, accept petition for the proposed vacation of portion of Peasley Road, an existing road with a road right-of-way of 60 feet and is located in original lot 61 and 68 of Brownholm Township from Vermillion Road to Portman Road. The engineer states the description actually describes the area to be vacated. Notice will be posted in the Chronicle Telegram on June 4th and 16th, 2003. A viewing will take place on June 25th at 11 a.m., not 10 a.m., because you can't be in two places at one time.
Thank you.
And the public hearing is scheduled for July 10th, 2003 at 10:30 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
I'd also like to expand the request for the executive session to include discussion on the potential purchase of a piece of real estate.
Okay.
Mr. Ernest, Assistant County Prosecutor?
I have a couple of matters regarding pending litigation that if we have time, I also would like to discuss in executive session.
Commissioners report.
Madam Chair, do you mind if we wait till after old business to discuss Commissioners report?
No.
Last time I did it was an hour and a half, so I thought, just since there's people here for other issues. You guys mind?
I think that's an excellent
Okay.
suggestion.
Thanks.
Old business. Number 1, continued discussion on the airport to manage the FBO.
I have one short thing under old business, and that's Green Acres. We haven't heard anything from the Boys and Girls Club, and I'm thinking, the longer that building stays vacant, the more damage is going to be done out there. Jim, have you heard anything from them? I know that they're trying to get funding to repair it, but how long is this going to take? How much longer?
I'm not completely sure, Commissioner. The last time we visited this issue, they were requesting that we do an environmental review of the building. I remember passing some cost proposals to the board with respect to doing that. To be quite candid, which I'm not even quite sure we ever did go past just looking at proposals to do that at that building with regard to environmental issues.
Probably better just to call them up and see if they're still interested first.
Well, Bill County spoke to me, or at least left me a voice message a couple weeks ago. I know they're still very interested. I'm not sure that they've been completely able to structure things the way they wanted, but the interest obviously is still there.
The interest is there, but I believe the funding isn't there for them. They just don't have the money to do anything with it.
I don't know. Last talk I had with them was that they did have the ability to fund it, but it's the chicken and the egg. They need to get in first, and they'll be able to get funding. So why don't we find out how interested they are in before we move on?
And see what the problem is.
Yeah. What's it going to take to move this or not?
Okay. Couple weeks?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, that's all I
Continued
have.
discussion on the authority to manage the FBO. I think there's a few people here today. Might want to...
Yep.
Are they all here?
I think there's a quorum, though. This is one of those rare moments, newspaper people, that you have an actual 2 boards meeting, I think, here. We have an actual quorum from the Airport Authority, and we have, naturally, a full board here.
That's what I told them, they could have a meeting
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah. So I don't know how, what would be appropriate to move this forward, but I think it worked out pretty good that they came in on their on the day to talk about it. So
And thank you for coming.
I could read the newspaper today and see what they have to say about the future of the regional airports. Still up in the air, so since it's up in the air, I'd like to at least see if we could get this thing off center. And if the board would like to speak, would you like to? Anybody like to talk in regards to the issue? Because I think the bottom line with me is the issue still is who's going to control the FBO, the commissioners or the authority. So I think my position's pretty clear. I don't know if the commissioners had any questions for the authority. It's a long walk up. I don't know if you guys want to.
Madam President, members of the board, last week when we had the discussion on transferring the FBO, and I believe the word is transfer, not manage, because we're already managing the FBO, there was a question about the board and the support of the board for this. We have 6 of 7 board members here. Mr. Zaleski could not make it today, but from his comments in the paper, you can see that he as well supports this. So with that, I'd just like to turn it over to the board, and if any of them wish to make comment, please do. I think Howie was our spokesman last year, and Mr. Gross is our president, Mr. Monia is our vice president.
If you guys don't mind introducing yourselves as board members, I think...
My name's Len Sikora.
I'm George Andrews.
Dan Gross.
Butch Suki.
Joe Monia.
And Howard Leonard.
This is our Airport Authority Board. Correct, Mike? Is there anything you wanna- You're the executive director.
Minus Mr. Zaleski. Madam President, members of the board, I'd like to say that I've had an opportunity to work a couple of years with this board, and they're distinguished professionals, very astute in their professions, astute businessmen, and good aviators. And I would just like to turn this over to them. I think this board knows my feeling on this and how important this is to just turn it over to the authority and let the authority make the decision on the future of the FPO. I'll just turn it over to Dan, who's our president.
We had the discussion last week, and I think you know my position on it, Commissioners, is I feel that the airport would be best run by board in a whole. I think we can make decisions for the better of the airport. If we control everything in the airport and not have to ask the question each time something comes up with the FBO. And I think the others would like to maybe...
But by doing this, I think who owns the land, who owns the buildings, I think that's a major issue too. And by the board giving control to the authority, the ultimate, everything else would fall back on the commissioners. If there were any problems, it would still fall back on the commissioners, because I believe we own a percentage. The feds own 90%, and the county owns 10%. So there's going to be liability somewhere here, and I think we have to figure out how all that's going to, where that stands. Where does it come into play? I don't know if Jerry has to answer that, if board members know.
What's the
Madam
question?
Commissioner, if I may...
The question is,
Who owns it?
Who owns it, and what portions do it's my assumption that the feds own 90% and the county owns 10% from what I remember of the past history of it. Isn't that correct, Jerry?
The land itself is owned by the regional airport. The county owns we purchase the physical operations of the FBO.
Okay, so the airport authority owns the land, and the county owns the buildings?
Some of the buildings.
Yeah, not all the buildings at the airport, we're talking about
The FBO.
Space operation, right? Now, there are underlying agreements with the federal government where it might be feasible, for instance, if the whole operation were shut down, the federal government could come and, under certain scenarios, reacquire the entire property.
Because 90% of the funding comes from the feds, doesn't it?
I don't remember the exact percentages of it.
I know in the
Commissioner, but I know
runways.
there are all kinds of strings attached to the funding from the federal government, whereby if the operations are terminated, the federal government would be able to reacquire the amounts of the monies they funded through taking back the physical assets.
I know the runways, when we used to fund portions out there, it was like 90% federal money and 10% county money.
It's the same with our roads, so I think we go 80-20. Ken Carney's Mr. 80-20 when it comes to funding our roads, so 80% comes from the feds, 20, right? So I don't see what that...
But I want to know who's going to have the ultimate liability if something goes wrong. Because if that's the case, then I would say turn everything over to the Port Authority. The land, the building, whatever it is that the county owns, give it all to you, and you run it the way you want to run it. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to wash my hands of the airport and get it off the county general fund, period.
And that's kind of where we're heading.
Well,
We got to give the airport the authority to make money, because right now you cannot manage an FBO for us on a 30-day basis. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh,
No.
They've been managing it by contract, and the only reason the 30 days was put in there was to, because it was a beginning operation,
Right.
and it was a salvation for either party. But
Okay.
they've been doing it since we purchased it.
Right. And...
And
Well, they're the professionals.
Right.
I mean, I don't know anything about airports and less about airplanes. And they're the professionals, they're business people, they're airplane people. They know how to run that airport better than this board does.
I agree.
So, but I want to do it the right way so that the county doesn't have liability.
Well, is there a way we can design it so that we can give them at least 1 or 2 years to try it, and then if they can't perform to our expectations, then we take it back?
No, because in that 1 or 2 years, I want to know if I agree to do this, I would like to give them not only the authority, but the land and the buildings,
I think
if
they already-
whatever
they
is
already have-
necessary.
They already have the land. The only thing that they don't own
Whatever
is
is
the empty-
necessary.
Then the only thing they don't own is the fixed base operations and their assets, which is the buildings, the equipment, and the business goodwill name, which whatever that's worth. So, but my understanding, that's what was purchased in 1999. I don't know, you guys were, I don't know who was here at that time, but,
Not a lot of them.
That's correct, Commissioner.
all right. You were involved in the deal, weren't you? Were you the one?
I was involved with
Okay,
somewhat.
I won't say that you were the one that made the deal about this thing.
And then-
You reviewed the legal terms, okay?
We had to report something to the federal government before when we made some changes out there. Do we have to report anything here? I don't know who can answer these, Jerry or Mike?
What is the question, Madam Chairman? I'm sorry.
We had to report to the federal government, either with the FBO or something that we did out there. Since the federal government is involved in the airport, do we have to report anything that we do if we turn this over to the authority? Do we have
Madam
to
Chairman,
inform them?
Members of the Commissioners, the answer to that is no. The only thing we'd have to report to the FAA is if ownership of the property, if there was ownership of the property. And
Since you
that
guys
would be
are
the only
owner.
thing. I mean, if it was, the FBO was turned over to us, the FAA is not involved in that at all. All you would be
Legally.
turning over to us would be the assets of the FBO and the business.
And can we legally do that, Jerry?
We can legally transfer that property to a private entity or over to the airport. When you say turnover, I'm not sure whether, again, you're talking about actually conveying ownership.
Deed it to them.
Yeah, conveying ownership of assets that were purchased and the actual goodwill, whatever else that was purchased in
Sure,
1999.
we can do that.
You don't need to research that. You're really sure off the top of your head we can do that without any problems from the federal government or anything?
Basically, Joe Money, Vice President, basically, we'd like you to turn the operation of the FBO and the buildings over to us so that we can enter into agreement with a group that will lease the buildings. They will buy the assets of the FBO, meaning the tugs, the fuel trucks. They'll buy those assets. The buildings will still, in the lease, the buildings will still be owned by, if you turn them over to us to manage it, it will still be owned by us. And of course, they're not buying the buildings. They're going to lease the property, they will buy the assets. Not the assets, not the building. The asset is the trucks, again, the tugs and
The equipment.
So that's what we like to do, and we're close with, and we looked at some people who are well-funded in aviation and not fly-by-night group. They will, I guess, fly-by-night, but not this. They're a worthwhile, well-funded organization that has the assets to do this, in that basically control of the physical buildings and to keep them clean and well-maintained will be theirs, but we will still manage the lease. You're not going to lose anything. What you're going to gain is an opportunity to cut, as we discussed it in our meetings, is to cut the red ink out. You'll still own control where you never had control before like this. You'll still have some control through the board. The board, as I said in the notes that I sent to everybody, you'll still control the board through the process of appointment, and of course, the fiscal request that we make of the commission. But you have this expertise sitting here, and the expertise has looked at it, and we're trying to say for the betterment, and we understand the financial position the board is in, and we, the commissioners, and the building definitely has to have some major repairs done, and they have to start pretty quick, because the repair of the door system, it will take quite a while because of the drainage problem, and you have to repair the tracks and those huge doors and the heating system. we're going to cut the bills down on the heating bills that are being paid out by the county. And liability, you asked about liability. Mr. Ennis can answer that. I guess anybody can sue anybody for anything, I found out. And if somebody wanted to sue, you would be, the airport authority would come first. If he's ours, the airport authority, or the leasers would come first. We would end up second, and the county commissioners, I assume, if Mr. Ennis agrees, would end up probably at the bottom of any kind of a lawsuit. Somebody did try to sue the board a long time ago when there was an airplane accident out there. I don't think that they got anything from the county or the board. The Cessna aircraft ended up paying it.
I have, this is going to be a major question for you guys, but if this board was to turn over the assets by deed of real estate to the authority in exchange for any additional appropriation, any additional funding, how do you feel about that?
There's no real estate, though. They already own the
Well,
real estate.
No, the fixed-base operation is a form of,
Oh, it's chattel, so.
And there's just a bunch of trucks and stuff.
yeah, just a bunch.
Louder, please.
Thank you, Shirley.
The
Holly?
deed stays with the actual deed stays through the airport authority. The actual deed, I believe, was, unless Mr. Ennis, the deed stays with the county, doesn't it?
I'm talking about
Oh, I know what you're saying. How about
deeding
this?
it to the authority.
The cash that you're getting from the sale, could that offset any general fund money we give you? And I think it could. Because you guys won't come back to us and say, hey, look, we got $500,000 or whatever the number is, and you'll use that so you don't have to come back to us to get general funding, right? Is that what you're saying?
What okay,
No, I'm
simply, putting it very simply, if we were to turn everything over to you guys, okay, in exchange for us not appropriating any more money to the airport authority, would you be able to survive?
No. The answer to that is no.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, if we were to fund the airport authority for maybe a year, maybe 2, the longest, to give you some time to get it up and going?
What you would have to keep in mind, Madam President, is if this board decides to turn it over to a private company, they're going to make initial investment of capital of fixing the buildings in lieu of rent credits. So in a sense, what they would be doing was paying rent up front. We would be back to a situation where, the county would still have to fund the authority, not the FBO. Remember, you got two distinct entities here. You got the FBO and you got the authority.
Yeah, but wouldn't you be making money off of this company?
We would be making we'd be making more than we're making now because we're not collecting anything from the county, who in effect owes us $80,000. I mean, according to the contract. But
Have you sent us a
we
bill
would
for
be.
that?
No.
No, we'll reduce it off of the appropriation. Go ahead.
We will be collecting fuel flowage fees. We will be getting some income in from them. And it's structured in such a way that as their business grows, there'll be more money coming to the county and to the authority. We be getting
This is more of an
percentage of
offset.
their
Of
revenues.
this is more of an offset of how to fund the airport. Bottom line is, what you guys are used to getting, what 464 is what you requested for.
466, I think, is what we
in
requested
03.
last year, and you
No, that's what you requested, and with the budget
gave us 300.
that I'm looking at that you gave the board, you'll be down in about 5 years down to $281,000 a year, and these are conservative numbers that
Those
you
are
gave.
conservative numbers.
So this is basically kind of the stuff I've been looking for from transit, but somehow seems to be an issue with transit, but that's another issue next time. But this is just a way to offset the way of, are we going to use the general fund to fund this $500,000 agency continually, or are we going to at least allow them to manage the FBO? And with their projections, the funding of this FBO, or the funding of the airport should be cut in half,
Yeah.
because you guys will be making money off who knows what. It's kind of hard to predict the future on IFCOM. Although government likes to live on it, unfortunately we can't predict. But the fact that you guys have an itemized budget for the next 5 years, if we hand over the controls and the authority to you, I think it's a very well thought out plan. I think there's you guys put some sand in here, which is good. I don't think you're going to need the 280. I think you're going to need a little bit less, but that's up to you guys to work out a way to get more revenue. I'm sure I mean, Butch was around when the farm deal, right? You're going to relook at that farm contract, all right? Because I think that's another $30,000 or $40,000 a year. So he knew before I took office that was one of my pet peeves. But there's other revenue coming for the airport that could generate another $40,000 or $50,000 that I think you put in here, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And again, Commissioner Moore, that's probably a pretty conservative projection out over the next 5 years that I put together.
Yeah, because the one I did was a lot more
And I
harsh.
think it's important that to know and understand that we're reducing that number to below what you gave the airport 6-7 years ago. And that's 5 years down the road, so we cut it almost in half.
Wait, Commissioner Blair, do you have a copy of those figures?
Oh, probably.
I don't recall
You don't?
saying, no.
Did you give us copies of these lists?
Jim was supposed to give them to the commissioners. He was
Did we?
the email
Well,
that
this
Mike
was
Barr
part
sent
of
you.
your discussion yesterday, or
No,
last week?
remember when Michael sent, did you send that to county administrator?
I don't remember.
I'm not in possession of that document.
I have a copy of what he faxed, which is a proposed agreement.
Didn't you email something last week?
That was what I asked them for last week, Betty, that they faxed to us, but I don't think those figures
No,
were in there.
you're correct, I'm sorry.
okay.
I believe I
But-
brought that with me and left it up there, and maybe you picked it up, Commissioner.
Oh, okay.
You
I had
know,
that with me last week.
I got the fax stuff, I already had that.
we're basically talking about a company coming in and leasing the FBO from either the board or the airport board. But it's my understanding that none of the board members really saw a copy of this agreement between that company or the proposed agreement. And I would prefer that the board members, the airport board, look that agreement over and then come back to us, because we may be talking about something that even you're not in agreement with. I mean, we have a copy of the agreement because last week I asked for it and Mike sent it over to me. But I'm not an airplane person, and I personally don't know enough about that agreement to feel comfortable with it. And I would prefer that you professionals in that area look at that agreement and then come to the board and talk to us about the FBO, because maybe you want to renegotiate that agreement. Maybe you feel comfortable with it, but I would rather have your opinion on it.
But you're saying two things.
No, I don't know.
You're
Go
saying two
ahead.
things. You're saying, let's hand it all over to these guys to make a decision. But I want to be a part of that decision-making. So,
No,
Well,
they're
I don't
not.
think
They
that's
don't.
what she said
That's
at all.
not
I
what
think
I'm
she
saying.
What she said, as I understood it, was that she wanted to make sure that each one of these board members had seen the document that we have seen.
Right.
That speaks to the issue.
Right.
That was
Right.
pretty clear to me.
But the issue at hand is, are we going to hand this over to the authority, the FBO?
Well, that's the
Because I
way
think-
you have defined the issue,
Right.
Commissioner Moore, with all due
Right.
respect.
Yes, please.
I understand what you're saying. I think the answer to that is there really is no agreement. There's simply a rough outline of
A draft of an agreement.
a draft, which would have to be approved by this board if there was, if that was going to go into effect. So what you're asking for is a check and balance system that you would be putting in place, because there could be no agreement unless this board passed it.
That's what I'm asking. Yes, Holly?
Yeah. Basically, the way I see it now is, we're not really in a position to be able to enter an agreement because we don't have the control of the FBO we need to do that. We can come to you and make a recommendation that you should enter into this agreement, but we can't do it. Then once you entered into an agreement with the person, let's say, every time they needed to do anything just about, they have to come to us, and we have to come to you, and it would become a very time-consuming, lengthy process just to get anything approved. And basically what we're asking right now is not to say, do you like the agreement or do we like the agreement, but simply that, we don't want to keep this time-consuming process going. We would like to have the ability for them to come to us and us to be able to directly give them an answer so that business can be conducted the way business needs to be conducted. Not if we have to keep going around the way we've been doing it, there's no agreement that we can even negotiate with this other party because there's no way they could function under it, under the present circumstances. They wouldn't even want to negotiate that because they can't conduct their business according to the way the setup is right now, through us, through you, with the FBO. You would still, whether you turn it over to us or not, we're not asking to sell the buildings or any of those kind of things like it used to be, to where you didn't have the ownership or anything that you had before. We're simply asking that we're able to conduct business with this other partner on a timely basis. And in order to do that, we need control. We need more control to do that. Otherwise, the whole agreement, there's nothing we can even negotiate with them. There's nothing that they can work with and live with.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Those comments, while appreciated, point to a decision already having been made that the best course of operation for us is to have a private company provide the services of the FBO. This was a concept that Commissioner Moore introduced to us a while ago, and I believe Commissioner Vasey agreed with him, and at that time, the Board of Commissioners instructed our administrator to go out for RFPs to, in fact, look at, do we want a private company to run the FBO on our behalf? I thought that's where we were, and then now we have progressed to, last week our choice was give it over to the airport authority or keep it. I'm still not convinced that we need a private company to run that FBO, and you've already moved beyond where I am. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm not going to support this at this point in time, and if we're going to vote on it today, I'm going to vote no. The bottom line is, I think that the Airport Authority Board and its director have been very creative in trying to find some money that they're not getting from the commissioners because we just don't have it to give, and trying to find some money to enhance the operations of the FBO out there, and I applaud you for that. And I realize that each and every one of you, with the exception of the employee staff, are doing this on a voluntary basis. But the bottom line is, what is the best thing for the taxpayers of Lorain County, who, through the funds that they've allocated to us, and on their behalf, we have purchased this FBO. And, I've been around for a while, and I spent a lot of time listening to people at the airport, perhaps not as much recently as I did before we purchased that FBO. But the FBO was supposed, once we purchased it, it was supposed to be a panacea to make money for the county's taxpayers. Now, with all due respect, I know we've had some transition, we've had different personnel, we've a lot of things have been done. But we don't seem to be any farther ahead than we were when we purchased the FBO, and now the solution to this is for us to, number one, get a private company to run it, and I question whether that's the best thing for the county. I sincerely question that. And then number two, we're going to give this mechanism over to the airport authority to run our behalf. I have a serious problem with that.
Well, I think it would be the same if we were to have private industry come into the airport. I mean, I see the FBO as a business, and I don't think it would be any different than any other industry that we might put out there.
Except that we own it.
But do we want to own it because we don't know enough about airplanes
Mary
to
Jo,
run
that's
it?
a good question, except that we already do own it. Okay.
But we don't have to. Here is an option here.
Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't own it. We're not trying to say that. And I agree with her with the privatization. The difference before was that the private company owned the buildings. This time the private person wouldn't. And in the past, I too have been against privatizing the FBO. But the circumstances that I see that have changed are the effects that 9/11 had on the airport, which are beyond anybody on this board's control. And number two, the effects that there isn't the funding. At the point you bought the FBO and you asked us to manage it, you're asking us to manage something that's in extremely bad condition. And if you came to me or this board and said, look, we're willing to fund those improvements and give you the money you need to make those improvements, then I think everybody on this board would be eager to say, let's go at it with the FBO. But the truth of the matter is, you've said to us, you cannot fund those improvements. You can't hardly even fund the operation. So that has put us back to the position of saying we either manage it the way we are, in bad condition, unable to bring in people because of the bad condition, and just kind of let it linger and continue to deteriorate because that's what's going on, or we look for someone else to bring in those funds to improve the buildings. The bottom line is you can't improve an airport without improving the buildings. There's no way around it. There's too many improvements to the doors, to the roof. You can't go out and try and get somebody to bring in $1 million aircraft or company to operate out of there and expect them to park their planes in buildings that leak and possible doors coming off the tracks and stuff like that. I don't have a problem with you guys owning this and us managing this and not privatizing if you are willing to say, here's the money you need to make improvements. It's
like
your
a-
asset. It's your asset, and if you want to put the money into it so that you can improvement, so that we can bring in the business that needs to be brought in, that's fine. But what we've heard is that you don't have the funding, you can't make the improvements out there that need to be made. You know, we don't have the funding to fix a leaky roof or a broken door or to, you know, any of those things. So if we can't do that, then it puts us into one of two choices. We either continue to manage it the way we've been, which is simply let it continue to deteriorate, do the best we can with it and watch it go downhill slowly, or we look back again at privatizing. The difference, though, this time is we're not getting an agreement in front of us that says basically, here's an open checkbook and let us do whatever you want and we're going to keep all the profits from it. This agreement actually is equivalent or equal to what other FBOs offer at Burke and Cleveland and other places where the buildings are improved in better condition. So we're looking at this only because the bottom line is funding. Where is the funding going to come from? If we were all sitting here and you said, look, we got the funding to make those improvements, we're all eager to manage it. We'd love to go forward with that. That would be our first choice. We've been waiting for that.
It's just like
But
any other
the funding
business.
isn't there, so
It's
we're
like-
just asking you what you want us to do.
It's like any other business. The owner of the business has to put the money into the business.
Right,
You need
and right
operating money, you need the money to do the repairs, whatever. The owner has to do that. So what you're saying, bottom line, if you want to own the building, then fix it so we can do something with it.
Right,
And then
you're the owner of the
then you can
business.
manage it.
Right.
But it's not, it's
not-
impossible, so we need
Right.
someone else. Butch?
Well, the fact is, when you guys, and that's what got me going on this, is when you did the URS study, I believe it was, where they said $5 to $8 million it's going to cost to tear down and rebuild. That kind of got my interest up because I didn't think we could ever come up with $5 to $8 million to do that. I talked to some board members. They said they could probably fix the airport board or the buildings for $750 to $1 million. There was some excess general fund money in the beginning of 2000. There is none today. It was last September I met with Mike and his financial person and one other board member, and went through the revenue projections and what they spent and what their budget was in '02, what he was asking for '03. I went through that and we discussed this in our budget. You were asking for, your budget was $524,000 in '02. You were asking for $467,000. I think this board agreed to fund you for $300,000. I call that tough love. The transit sees it differently, but I appreciate the fact that this board took the initiative to show up today to discuss this so-called, I call it tough love, which is you know you don't have the money to proceed. You're doing everything you can to make the airport work. Everybody here cares about it or you wouldn't be here today. And I think, number one, Betty, you're right. We are looking out for the taxpayers' dollars, and that's why I got involved with this, to take it from a $500,000 drain in the general fund down to $280,000 a year, which I still think those are conservative numbers. You can get this down to maybe not the FBO being a money-making proposition, but the airport would not be as much as a drain on the general fund. We need the airport. We're going to keep the airport. I don't think the FBO will ever make money if the county owns it. That's just my own personal opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. That's my opinion because I don't think government should be in business. Because we're not paying property taxes on any of those assets out there, are we, Mike? Are you paying personal property tax? That's one of the things Mark's trying to get us as much personal property tax to help offset these issues. A personal company comes in here and starts buying assets, guess what?
They'll have to.
Mark's smiling because he sees an opportunity to collect more personal property tax. We're all going to be happy because we'll have more money. And so now guess what? We have this doesn't even take into account the taxes that we're going to collect. All we're looking at is just a cash management business here. And whether or not, and I'm going right back to the thing. I think Holly said it. If we want to be in, we don't have to hand this over, but we're going to have to hand over $1 million to fix it. Or we do nothing and let it deteriorate, and we have an embarrassment out there. That's all. I'm sorry, Butch. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Commissioners, I feel very fortunate. I've been going to attending the Airport Authority meeting since 1990, and I believe I was appointed in 95 to the board. Prior to I know the history of the airport. I'm a pilot. I've been flying since 1965. I used to fly at Lorain Airport when I had just a concrete runway. It's very fortunate that way. I'll also explain to the commissioners prior to the purchase of the FBO that they were buying a rundown piece of property, a slum piece of property that had needed many, many repairs. And I'm speaking because I know, because I go there all the time. We have a building that leaks roof, and we have I don't know the exact number of airplanes in the Midwest. The building we have, but we collect a nice considerable amount of rent on that to help us defray our costs, keep our expenses down. But if you have a gentleman that has a jet in a hangar, a multi-million-dollar jet, the roof leaks, that's like having your Lincoln or Escort or whatever car you have in your garage, you have a leak roofing on your water leaking on your vehicle. And I'm against that. And I want to stress one more time prior to the purchase of the FBO. And the gentleman over prior to, I talked to every commissioner one-on-one privately, and I explained the whole situation to them. My recommendation was to wait, but there was things that come up and they didn't want to go that route. And I explained to them again that it was like buying a piece of property for a high dollar amount, like property, we'll say a $200,000 home, and you needed $100,000 repairs in it because the roof was bad, foundation was bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I feel very fortunate, and the board that we have now is very experienced. Most of them are pilots, and they're from the business community. Very fortunate that we have a gentleman that, Mr. Gross, when we looked at the building, we had the report from Griner. They said that we had to tear the building down, but we're very fortunate. We looked at it, no, we can remodel the building. But you have to spend money to make money. That's like a house. If you don't keep up the maintenance of your house, it's going to fall apart. And that's basically where you're at with this airport. We just want to run your airport. That's all we want to do. Make it viable, make a profit if we can. And we have an opportunity now where someone wants to do this and take in the fund all the maintenance for this. You asked me what we're going to have in the future. We can't project that. Like when we had 9/11, we can't project what's going to happen in the future. How much money we're going to, I can't project that. It's like you asked me what's Ford going to build escape at my plant. I can tell you what they're going to do 2 years from now. I can't tell you, I can't discuss that. I don't know. But all we want to do is have everything turned over to the authority so we can do a better job for the taxpayers of the county. That's all we want to do. Yeah, we're doing this out of gratitude because we enjoy doing it. And I can assure you that Holly and we have a very good executive director, Mike. He knows the ins and outs with all the airports and the experience he has, 30 years at the airport. We got an excellent board. It's up to you guys. If you want to keep it, that's fine with me. I'll still serve the board unless you kick me out. But you have to spend money to make money. And I apologize today because when we had the farmer thing, we went to the farm bureau. That's what they told us to price. I can guarantee you this: when the contract comes up next time, we'll make money from that more than we are now. But
just promise me you'll open up to open bid. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's the whole. No, it's not your fault. Now that the whole board's here, all I ask is that you open bid the
No,
farm.
but I feel bad about it. If I can't make the taxpayers of the county money, then I'm not doing my job because I'm an average taxpayer. I'm not a worker. I'm a Ford worker. And I like to watch my money too, and I try to keep my expenses down when they cut the overtime out. But we can't live beyond our budget. And like I explained to the commissioners before, to my knowledge, no airport makes money. The airport is there for, let me give you an example. I don't know if many of you know this, but about 6 weeks ago, Kevin Costner flew into our airport with his daughter. Big, fine executive aircraft. But that's what you have. Paul Newman has flown in here. So there's a lot of things that the general public doesn't know who comes into our airport. The airport's not there just for recreational pilots like the papers like to perceive us as. The airport's there for everybody. It's for business. Ford comes in, and Ford flies their freight in, not as much as they used to because the economy is down, which we all know. But all I'm asking you as the commissioners, and I know all you fairly well, you know me, I've always been up front. Turn it over to us so we can do a better job for you. We're not going to shortchange you, believe me, because we watch every nickel. And like I shared with you before, I'm very fortunate that we have a good director, and I'm getting a very good education for the board members that we have because they're all pilots and they're all business people. Thank you.
Thanks, Bert.
Seems like this discussion stems around the agreement, and none of the board members have really seen the agreement. And I would like to have the board members look at the agreement and then come back to us and talk further.
And I think the
The board members have all seen that agreement.
That's,
Like all proposals, it has to be modified.
well, now I'm hearing something different. A few minutes ago, I heard you say that you didn't see the draft agreement.
We didn't see an agreement, we saw a proposal. We've all been notified of the proposal, and it has to be massaged.
You didn't see the draft agreement, though. Well, that's what I would like for you to see as business people and airport people. Because there's percentages in there, there's fuel costs and prices, and
We've seen that. Well, Commissioner, we've seen not the agreement, but what we want to do, just like
yeah, what they want to do and what they're actually going to sign their name to, which is two different things.
that is just a fundamental type thing.
It's a starting point is what it
Starting
is.
point, we can go from that. We've seen that.
We're just here today to ask you to turn over the decision-making over to us, over the airport authorities. And Holly said it perfectly clear. You know, if we had an open budget, an open checkbook, we certainly wouldn't be here today because we can turn that airport around and make the improvements that we really think need to be made. But however, our hands are somewhat tied now with all the red tape going back and forth between you and ourselves trying to make improvements over there, and it's really tough to do that. We're not saying that if you give us permission, then today, this afternoon, we're going to enter into an agreement with this private operator. We're asking you just to let us look at this agreement and come up with something that's going to be best for the county.
But somebody negotiated this agreement. And if the board didn't negotiate it, who negotiated? How did we come up with this agreement that none of you have seen? This is what I'm talking about.
That's the proposal.
That's a proposal.
That's just what they
That's a
presented to us.
proposal. That's a starting point. It's a starting point is all it is.
It's a draft agreement.
Well, it says the word agreement, but that's a
Well,
proposal. Just semantics.
So you
Right.
have seen this?
Yes. Yes, we have. It's a starting point.
That's very general.
It's very general.
It sure is.
And they might not even do it. I mean, they might not even do it. You guys might go
That's
out and
correct.
bid it out. I
That's
mean, you
correct.
guys might not like it. I don't know.
That's correct. Something has to be done out there
Yeah.
because, you know, I've got a lot of hours flying and I base an airplane out there myself, and I traveled to probably 150 different airports in the United States, and, you know, from real small 2,500-foot airstrips to, you know, 10,000-foot international airports. And I see what's going on, and unless somebody who is operating the FBO has full control of it, then it goes nowhere. It just remains stagnant. And it's like you say, you have to, if you have an apartment building and you can't find renters because your roof is leaking, you have to either repair the roof or just tear the whole thing down and call it quits. And we certainly don't want to do that, but we don't want to drain the general fund either. And, you know, I think the two gentlemen that we are considering this proposal with, they've got a proven track record, they've got a long time in this business, they've got the resources to do what they say they're going to do, and I've known the one gentleman for probably 30 years. And like I say, he's got a proven track record, he's got resources, and they're very well connected. And I think you're not going to see a change over there overnight, but I think over the course of the next several years, you'll see a definite big improvement over there at the airport.
So then, as board members, are you in agreement with this? Or are you saying that you would
No,
still like
don't
to
call it an
negotiate?
agreement. Please don't call it an agreement. It's just a starting point. It's just a starting point. That's all it is. And, you know, we're not here to ask you to accept that, what you call an agreement. We're here, like we've all said, to relinquish that control of the FBO to us so we can make the proper decisions. And like I said, if you give us that permission, we're not going to enter in this agreement this afternoon with these gentlemen. We will, negotiate back and forth on this to what's best for the county.
I think they're presenting a concept for you to consider today, Commissioner. That concept being that we would transfer ownership over to them. If we did that, we would have to have an agreement between the airport authority and the commissioners transferring ownership over to the airport authority. They then would put together another contract, probably based upon the provisions of the proposal you have in front of you. The commissioners would not be involved in that proposal that you have in front of you. I think today they're just presenting a concept as opposed to asking approval to any particular exact agreements.
Okay, I think in order to do that, I would like to see what exchange we'll have. Would we be getting a reduction, or would we have to, continue to fund this? How much would the reduction be? Yeah, you're talking 5 years.
I don't have a copy here. I think I left that here last week, if I remember.
I got right now.
And I agree that if the airport authority was to own that, you would probably be more aggressive or feel like, that you would, I guess, want to put more into it.
One of the
More
things
time.
that isn't going to show up for you for a while is that as these improvements get made, if we were to do this agreement, you're no longer going to see us coming to you saying, we need $500,000 to fix this building, we need this, we need that. That's not going to show up in your general fund. Those are improvements that are going to appear at the building at the airport that didn't have to come out of your general fund. So there's an equivalent value there that you didn't have to put out.
That would be for that section of the FBO.
Right,
but
for
we
that
still got all the
section.
rest of the hangars and...
But this is an asset, and I've said it all along, that the county owns the airport, and I don't know, it's like any other assets. It's like roads, it's like a park, it's like a port, it's like the buses. You fund all those things, but somehow when you come to the airport, you say, we want to get you to where we don't fund you at all.
No, we want them all to be that way. All non-general fund mandated agencies.
Well,
Commissioner,
we're able to, we're now funding part of ourselves, and what we're saying is we think we'll be able, through making these changes, be able to fund ourselves even further. But to be able to say that we're going to be able to get to $0, that you don't have any funding out there at the airport, but yet you have this great asset that we've been able to improve, I think is very unrealistic of any airport anywhere in the country, because there's none that I feel are that way anywhere that you can find.
Yeah, but we talked about industry coming out there. Haven't seen that happen yet.
Part of it is because the improvements that need to take place at the airport. You
Hey,
can't
To warehouse,
attract
to put a warehouse out there, you need all you need is the open land. And you've got the airplanes coming in that can stock that warehouse like Ford used it. Maybe they want to, I'm just using that for an example, put some of their stuff in a warehouse. I mean, there's got to be some other ways. The land is there, the assets are there.
And we're looking at doing that with the industrial park. We're in the process of doing that. But again, it takes money to develop an industrial park. It takes roadways, it takes sewers, you can't
Maybe
just
we
put-
need a developer to come in and move it. I don't know.
But that's up to the authority to make that decision, or is it up to us?
It depends on who owns it, I guess.
We
We're right back to where...
we have a unit out there housed in that FBO, another unit of government. And while these discussions are going on, if the commissioners decide in the end of the day or next week or a month to transfer the assets at FBO, I'd like to see some type of agreement with respect to that unit housed out there, so that if you achieve your desired outcome, we don't end up paying again for that unit to be out there.
We want to pay rent. Okay.
Well, I haven't heard any discussion on it. And,
I have also heard no discussion about the employees of the FBO. It was a unique arrangement we made when it changed hands. There's nothing here. What about those employees? You're going to privatize this? Are they going to be out of jobs? And one more thing. Let's just be realistic. Last week when you were here, there was some I'll use unused cash that we appropriated for your expenses. And this week we get another letter asking, I believe it's for another $20,520 as our 20% cash match of the rehab taxiway C grant that you're getting. So, you know, I sometimes think we just trade one set of problems for another, and I don't like to be negative on this aspect, but in my opinion, you have been running the FBO, and the bottom line is money. Has anybody tried to be creative and get some of that money through our new Port Authority? And I am of the opinion that people do not come in and do these things out of the goodness of their heart, and I have no problem with private business making money. That's what helps us all. It helps our economy. It helps the world go round. But whoever you might be interested in coming in to do this fixed-based operation by contract, they are not coming out of the goodness of their heart. And so, to me, you know, you talked about various levels, maybe not bureaucracy, but various levels and eliminating the middleman. I think you're reintroducing the middleman.
And reintroducing a tax base so that we can get some more revenue for the airport and less of a drain on the general fund. It'd be nice to have somebody out at the airport paying taxes instead of all those assets sitting there and not collecting.
Were they paying taxes before, and what kind of taxes were they paying? That would be interesting.
I wasn't here in '99.
I
think
know,
the difference
but
between '99 and now is the previous owner, and you said it, owned the buildings, right?
Yeah, they
And that's the
own-
only difference. We're not going to give up.
Basically, it
We're
would
not
be-
giving up that
right.
control.
We are not giving up what you bought. You are not losing what you bought. We are just simply going to be able to manage it better, whether we manage it through you funding us or someone else manages it through funding themselves.
I guess I just made a statement about getting creative through the Port Authority, and nobody's interested in talking about that, and I'm not sure about...
I'm interested.
Let me finish, about how creative I could be. And then in this agreement, that again is a draft, and I understand that. I understand that it's a draft, but it calls, I read it, and it calls for a turning over of various assets to whoever this fixed base operator would be. And it's several pages, and so I can't put my finger on it right this minute, but in essence, it's a turning over to them. And this particular agreement calls for a $2,500 rent per year. That's times 12. That equals $30,000 a year. Now, as I understand it, the initial investment we made in buying that FBO, whether it was
1.8.
good for it or not, I rounded it to $2 million, and you divide that, and it takes about 67 years to pay back that investment. And
Well, if you want to have a discussion on whether or not we should have bought that.
I said to Commissioner Basin, I'll say to you, the question has been raised, should we be in this business? And right, wrong, or indifferent, we are, okay?
And I'm trying to get out of it.
We can't,
That's all I'm trying to do.
we can't always go back and second guess every decision that someone else made, because you make a decision at a point in time based on the information that's given to you. And I have been a supporter of the Lorain County Regional Airport for years. I went out there together with Larry Coyne, who is now deceased, who is our economic development director. I went to New Russia Township, and we met to their meetings, and we convinced them to form an enterprise zone out there. That was one of the things that was going to make the airport more attractive. That enterprise zone has sat there since it was created, and I don't believe anybody has made use of that, but it's still there. Okay, then the next thing, and this has been an old thing, there was no gas line there. So to Mike Barth's credit and your board, and I was there, I think it was 2 years ago with Columbia Gas. Now we're going to have a gas line there. So, you know, there have been some improvements that have been made, but the bottom line, in my opinion, is money. And whether you like what's happening at Transit or not is not the issue. Everybody's feeling the pinch, okay, because there's less money to go around. So there are less resources. So I'm suggesting that we just need to be more creative. I applaud the creativity that you brought forth with this option. I am just not convinced that it's the best option. And I want you to know, and that's why, and I respect all the telephone calls that I got from the various people offering information. I chose, last week I said this publicly, I don't want to talk one-on-one to any of you because I want us to have this general discussion so everybody can hear what everybody else is saying, so you can know what my reservation is. I am not above being convinced to move to a next level. But I'm suggesting to you now that maybe, I think I read in the paper that the Transit Authority was upset that we didn't accede to whatever it was that they were requesting, and that's another day, another discussion. But there was a little suggestion that, well, maybe they would become a transit authority and they wouldn't have to go through the commissioners. Well, that's one way to solve the problem. I'm suggesting that maybe the county ought to run the FBO and forget about the airport authority. As long as we're going to discuss everything, let's discuss that too.
I'd like to make a comment that I think the purchase of the FBO on that property or the assets and the things that you've done were worthwhile because it gave you control of something that needs to be modernized. Now, flying all over the country, in my 10,700 hours of flying different corporations all over the country, when somebody pulls a corporate airplane in Lorain County, they're here to do business. Whether it's a big airplane, small airplane, or it's a business airplane, they're here to do business. We want to put our best foot forward. We do have good line people. We have good people working out there. They're excellent. They work very hard. Now, I pull a $20 million jet in here in the wintertime, and I can't get it de-iced. You think I'm going to come here? Nope. How does the building look to these people that land here? What kind of business atmosphere are we creating to make jobs here? That's why we put to the industrial park. And we wanted everything for the industrial park and the citizens, and we like the taxpayers of the county to be enriched with jobs and with income into our coffers through business. If you take a look at that building and you're pulling it in here and say, what kind of atmosphere, what kind of building atmosphere, what kind of business atmosphere we got, I'll tell you the truth, I've been to a lot of airports all over the United States and some South America, or south of the border. Our airport does not rank among the highest. It just looks shabby. There has to be things done. That's what we're trying to do. If the Port Authority we have a way to use the Port Authority, I'm all for it. Let the county let us keep the management. Even if the county kept the management, we probably would like a more control so we know where we're going. But we're running out of time. As I said in a note to you, we're getting to a building season. We need to do something about that roof. We have a $7-8 million airplane parked in there, somebody's jet parked in there. There's a couple of jets parked in there. And I don't think you want the roof leaking, whatever that it molds onto the people's airplanes. We're trying to protect you and talk about liability. There's a liability. Something happens, the doors need fixing, and they need fixing. They needed fixing last year. If one of those doors should happen to collapse on a couple airplanes, where's the liability going to go? We need to take advantage of fixing not only the main hangar, but there's T hangars out there where people are parking. They're paying good money for rent. More people will come there. They said if we built more T hangars, they'll come there. We need to do those things. And who does them right now? I understand the financial crunch that the county is under, and everybody wants a piece of the action. We're going to show you, I did a list, I think it was 108. Our county airport supports 100 and how many? 70? 50? 125 local businesses, and local county businesses are being supported by have been supported by our airport. I have a list that I asked Mike to make up. We're trying to keep work here. We're trying to make this an outstanding place that when you get it, you pull onto that airport. We have all this money coming in Mike's got from the feds. to modernize the runway, modernize the instrument landing system. We're doing all that for a purpose. Bring corporations in here. And I've talked to big corporate operators. They'll come in here. They're more than willing to come in here. But they might get in here during the winter. They might not get out in the winter. And let's just say we run into inclement weather. We have a hangar now. I don't know where we could put an airplane if it needed a major repair. Certain airplanes you can't get in that hangar. Maybe you can get the nose, and you're not going to get the tail section in. Those are the people that do business, and they're willing to do business with us, and we want to bring them here. We want to tell them that this is the best place to come. Not Lakefront, not Hopkins, not Cuyahoga County. We want to tell them to come here. If we don't put the money in the airport, there's only one answer. You take $50 and you buy white paint, you put 2 X's, and you close the runway. We need to do these things or close the airport.
Anybody else have anything to add? Because I think I know where the issue is. I think Commissioner Blair's made it clear. I think I've made it clear. So it's pretty much in your ballgame.
Okay, I'd like a week to see the figures that you have there, because I haven't seen those yet.
One's from last September when I was working
I don't
on it.
know, whatever figures you have. I haven't seen any figures.
Oh, I asked for these personally. Oh, these? Let me see what this is. Did you bring any this week or no? You brought them last week, I think. The 5-year projection on the, if you could get that faxed over to Commissioner Vassy.
I have it here.
You do?
We have 1 copy.
We can make a copy, Mike.
I got it.
No, that's okay. Just make a copy so you can get back.
May I have a copy too, Kathy?
Kathy? Well, she can't hear us real good, so.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
if I might address some comments made by Commissioner Blair. The $20,000 is for the 10% matching for federal projects that we have coming in, and I think I asked for that in the budget process last year, and the county set aside $300,000 for local matching. We have infrastructure improvements slated. We'll be going out for bid on 2 huge projects, probably $2.5 million this year. At our July meeting, we'll be awarding 2 contracts. One is for to finish infrastructure improvements into the industrial park, and the other is for modernization of the airfield. So that's what that $20,000 is.
Are you asking for it, or do you have it?
No, I'm asking, you have it. You set it aside for us, the 10% local matching share. I asked for $466,000 for operating, and I believe $300,000 if Mr. Roxy was here, because I confirmed that with him.
That was
They set aside $300,000 for the 10% local matching share that we talked about.
Okay, the 20 is in the 300,000?
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
I'd like to make one more comment. Mike said something a long time ago, that with 1 mile, 5,000 feet of roadway, you can go 5,000 feet. You got 5,000 feet of runway, it'll take you anywhere in the world.
We talked about that for so long. What does it take to get there?
Money.
Yeah, I know,
The
money.
bottom line is money, you know?
Right.
It's either got to come for you or it's got to come from private business.
It's got to come from somewhere.
If the
Got to
port,
come.
Or we
And-
spend-
Or
or we
Port
spend
Authority,
$50.
I'm open to that. That's a wonderful idea. I'd love to talk to them. I tried to get money out there to put up a building for a school. And we had the whole curriculum. We had agreements from Cleveland. We went into Cleveland to their aviation high school to get equipment. We had stuff set up with JVS, but there was no money for a building.
Okay, so what if you go through the Port Authority, get a bond, enough to do whatever it is that it takes to get this airport up and running, and then from the rent that you would get, say from the FBO or whatever, that would pay that bond.
Well, what's going to happen is they get about 100, right now they're getting about $68,000 a year in rent revenues with their projections with handing everything over. They're looking at $155,000 a year in revenue. The problem is they need $462,000 from us. If the authority goes out and uses the Port Authority to finance these buildings, which is fine, let you do that, but county commissioners is going to have to pay that bond. because it will be in their budget to pay it. So on $1 million, we're going to have to provide probably the
Now, what
funding for
figures
that.
are you looking at? That
You
doesn't
got
look
it.
like what I've got here.
Oh, this is just sideways. Let me see. How many pages you got?
That's just the one page.
Which, I don't know what you're looking at
Here,
there.
I'll get this over to, can you get that copied? That's a revenue, that's just revenue projections that you did for
Budget
them.
revenues?
Yeah, budget
Projections.
revenues.
Betty, I guess you want to pass them down. I mean, do you think that that would be possible? I mean, you would not only make the payments, but you could probably make some additional revenue from the rent that you would receive from whatever buildings or whatever you
Oh,
put
yeah,
up.
well, yeah, they'll get more
Commissioner
revenue.
Vacy,
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to consider and bring into this, absolutely. It may be a combination of the two. Maybe we do both, or, you know, that kind of thing. I think it's absolutely something we need to look at. But we also have to keep in mind that we're a board meeting once a month. This is a company that has expertise in airplane sales, airplane mechanics, education and training, fuel sales. They have other businesses. All those things that we, you know, are we going to set ourselves up in selling aircraft?
No, but wouldn't you sell that portion of the business? I mean, that would be another business. It sounds like you're talking
Absolutely.
about a lot of different businesses and
Right,
turning
and-
all these different businesses over to one company.
No.
Maybe you would want to divide that up
That's something we need to look at.
and have all these different companies pay you rent.
Right, and that's absolutely true.
Maybe this would not be the type of agreement
Right.
that we should even consider.
But what we're saying is, rather than that company having to come to us and then come to you, us come to you to get back to them, basically what would happen is it would simply become an exchange between us and that other company and us looking at all these options. You know, we're not even sure on that board how far we can take that agreement before we have to come to you, it has to go through your attorneys and everything else. Very time-consuming process. We
Well,
just
Holly, am
simply
I
wanna
hearing
narrow.
you say, excuse me, but am I hearing you say that the FBO controls that much of the airport? All those different businesses? Because all I ever hear is the fuel.
A full-service FBO, yes, will provide maintenance, will provide aircraft charter, will provide aircraft management, will provide flight school, flight instruction. That's a full-service FBO. It's more than just fueling.
Let me give
Yeah.
you-
And we would get a percentage of all those revenues. To
Because-
change out an engine on an aircraft, you could probably talk to this, an engine's cost $25,000. We would
Yeah.
get a percentage of that.
Okay,
This
because
company.
when we
And
talked
we couldn't
about...
prohibit another maintenance company from coming in, or another flight school. We couldn't prohibit anybody from coming in there and doing business against these people,
See,
competing against these
what could
people.
happen to the airport today is they can make a deal with the authority and say, we would like 5 acres, and you guys would make the rent deal, okay? They'll come in and build their FBO, and they would probably take 75% of the revenue that the commissioners have, because there's no law that prohibits another FBO to come into Lorain County Airport, and guess what? The $1.8 million is now worth nothing because everyone's going to a brand-new fixed-base operations at the airport, and that's what I'm trying to avoid, because right now that airport is an asset. Everyone knows it's an asset. Cleveland Hopkins is expanding. There's lots of things going on out there. People are looking to move. We have a window of opportunity, and if not, someone else, another business could easily come in here and do an FBO with the authority's permission.
With the authority's permission.
Permission right
They
now.
don't have to grant permission.
I know they
okay?
don't.
Well, I'm just clarifying that. I'm listening to what you're
Right,
saying.
Right,
Okay? So in other words, you control who comes into the airport.
correct.
The other thing that you need to understand is...
Excuse me? I didn't hear you, Mike.
According to the FAA grant assurances, we accept federal grants. Grant assurances tell us we have to open that airport to everybody. If somebody wants to come in and build an FBO, they have every right in the world as long as the deal's the
Can't
same.
deny it, yeah. The other thing
That's
that...
correct. We could not keep anybody out of that airport.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
The other thing that you have to say as a business person, just looking at it and having a fuel sales background, I can tell you if we managed this thing and we took in the gross revenue, paid all the employees, paid all the expenses, and got a net bottom line equal to 4% of a gross of somebody else, I'd be surprised. Or 5 or 6% cents on a gallon of fuel sales. If you can sell a gallon of gas, and I don't care what kind of gas you're talking about, a gas station, jet fuel, or anything else, and after all your expenses come out with 5 or 6%, or 5 or 6 cents, you're doing very, very good. So if we can do that same thing and not have to do all the work, do all the management, everything else, just get the same 5 or 6 cents that we would get if we did it ourselves, that's a very good agreement. 4% of a gross can be equal to 1% of a net. I mean, those are very good numbers, and it would be very hard coming from a business background that involves fuel sales to match those numbers personally running it ourselves. We'd have a hard time equaling those numbers.
Okay, but I do hear you say that you would be looking all these other things over too in regards to separating, like, you know, like you said, Mike, putting in a mechanic, maybe a body shop for airplanes and all these different ones, instead of turning all that over to one company.
Yes.
Have them individual and get rent from each one individually.
Absolutely. If they wanted to come out there, we'd be glad to set them up. We have avionics shop out there now that we've set up. We have 2 maintenance, 2
Because
different-
I always understood that when you have an agreement, said, okay, and I'm going to go back to saying, okay, this is an agreement. I can take that to the bank and say, I have somebody that is going to lease my facility for 10 years, and I want to borrow money on that, and this is how I'm going to pay you back, and still have a little bit for profit. The bank is going to open the door and give you the money. That's what I'm thinking. If we use the Port Authority, as Betty was talking about, maybe get some bonds, figure out how much you need, then go out and get some leases for these individual companies to come in, and then go borrow the money and do it yourself.
That could even be incorporated into this. Maybe go out to the Port Authority, get the money we need to do some of these repairs, and then just get the rent money from these people instead of having a rent credit. That's absolutely possible. That's not something we wouldn't consider to look at. All these things are still open and on the table. We have made no decisions. The only thing we know about is that it's very hard for us to function with a business, any business, on the current FBO under the current agreement that we have set up to manage it.
Another thing too, the malls. When they open these malls, they always get an anchor store. And that handles the, you know,
that's when that.
Yeah.
But the
Maybe
interface
we
don't
need
rent.
a developer. Maybe we need a developer, somebody that deals in malls that can help us. I don't know. Just throw this out.
You're limited because of the FAA and what we can do in that area.
I know we've got a lot of thoughts there, but I'd like to look the figures over and take a little
I
bit
think
of time.
Mr. Ennis made it quite clear, and I agree with him. We're looking at a concept. We're looking at the concept, and I think you've appointed everybody here. And I think to date, we're looking at different things, and we're cognizant of how you feel. And we take back to our meetings your feelings. But you've appointed the best people, and I think we got a pretty good track record of watching what the citizens spend. And I'd like you to be able to have faith in us that we're not going to go out and erect Disneyland in the middle of the runway. We're not going to do that. We're going to look for the county's welfare and the tax money get your feelings and your what you feel that has to happen out there. If you run it through us, let the guys who are aviation experts, I guess we're about as much experts as you could have, and if you have faith in us, let us do it. If you don't have faith in us, then we can't find the money.
Well, on behalf of the board, I think we all feel the same way, but we all do appreciate all the time and effort that each of you put in there, and the professionalism that you bring to the table, and the diversity that you bring to the table. I think we've got a great board, and each and every one of you. I don't want to see us lose any of you. I don't want to see you get discouraged, but I think we had a good discussion here, a good exchange of ideas, and I hope that no one got offended by anything that any of the board members have said. But I would just, like I said, like a week to look this over, because I didn't have these figures.
I've been mighty quiet through this discussion because probably I was the most reluctant to go down this road to start with. When we were on the Port Authority 3 years ago, when that was the organization that was considering this or going to be considering this, we heard a presentation from a private firm, and that didn't satisfy me at all at that point. I really wanted to see if we could run it ourselves, and I still think we could run it ourselves if we had the money. So it's the bottom line, and I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Blair about where's the money going to come from. I think we've had some good suggestions about ideas for looking elsewhere, but I don't want us to get bogged down in just looking and looking and looking. I think we've got to move ahead, and if this arrangement that we're proposing will lead to a fairly timely influx of money to do what we need to do to run the thing, I guess that at that point I'm for it, but I'm open to other suggestions.
Thank you. Thanks again. Appreciate your time.
I'd like to thank the board for all coming in too. This is kind of the first time it's ever happened in 2.5 years I've been here.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for hearing Usually we come out there, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Usually their board meetings are the same time as ours, that's why. I think they do that by just house.
Okay, where was my agenda?
Is there any further old business?
Yeah, I had something. Okay, Board of Elections. Well, we're talking about the move on the Board of Elections and then the equipment and us having to put that equipment in the old business. We have to put that equipment in by a certain time according to what's going on with the equipment and the laws and stuff. But we're talking about moving and putting in new equipment.
I talked to Jim before the meeting. He said by next week they should be ready to discuss the Board of Elections. So if we can wait till next week. Right, Jim? He said you're not ready today, but next week?
I think Commissioner Basie's talking about a different issue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm talking about we better move on doing something with that Board of Elections because, what is it, September, what's the date that?
September 1st, they have to choose the equipment.
Yeah, we have to choose the equipment.
But we don't.
But it
we
has
don't
to
do
be in
that.
by the presidential election, which I'm not sure is in March, February, May, whenever they're going to have it. I don't know, I'm hearing that they're not sure, but whenever it is, if it's March, let's say March. Pardon me?
You're picking on me, man. Whatever George decides.
I didn't do it publicly. Okay, let's use March for example.
No, but the facts are, I talked to the Board of Elections. I thought they had the decision-making capability.
That's not my problem here. My problem is to move them fast enough, because if they have to move in there by March, not only the voting equipment, but we're talking about computers, cabling, and everything else that has to tie them into the state. And I don't want to see us put the money into these old buildings and then again have to transfer them over to the move. So I'm thinking, I don't know what you guys think about it, but we have to move fast.
That's why I want to hurry up, and he said
Then you
wait
are
till next
talking
week.
about the same issue, and I apologize to Commissioner Moore. I thought you were talking about the selection of what
No, I
type
know
of voting
that may,
equipment that
yeah,
I
that's
spoke
not
of.
our,
Here's where we sum it up. I have the proposals in my office from the RFQ. They're almost completely ranked, and we can make we could have made a recommendation to the board a couple of weeks ago. But this board's still going to have to wrestle with the scope of what work's going to be done. Are we going to renovate for one Board of Elections, two Board of Elections to be combined?
Right.
Are we going to tear that building down and put a new building up? Are we going to renovate the other building? There's a lot of unanswered questions that are going to need to be answered so that we could properly negotiate a fee, because the request for qualifications is nothing more than that. You present your credentials, you're selected as supposedly the best company to do the job, but we have to give them a scope of work and negotiate the fee. I have no ability to do that because I have no idea where we're situated with respect to this issue as far as what we're going to do.
sure, even once we decide what we're going to do, it's going to take them time to remodel the building.
Certainly.
And
Well, it'd be quicker to remodel than to build. That's why I thought. That's why I was told you're going to be ready for next week, and then I thought we'd have the discussion
Sure.
at that point.
I'm just letting you know that
Because if not, we can talk about it right now. It's up.
whatever you're going to have to wrestle whether it's next week or this week.
is there going to be two buildings? Are we putting them all in one location? I
Are we
think we
tearing them all
have to
down?
know,
Are we tearing
yeah.
down the old and building a new?
Well, we've talked about this, and the last time we had this discussion, I think you were, if my memory serves me correctly, you were suggesting that we remodel, because I remember
It was a time frame.
asking.
It was a
you know,
time
okay,
frame issue.
well, and I appreciate
I prefer
that.
to build a new, because I think it would be cheaper, but we haven't had that discussion with the architects, and
Well,
it's one of those deals where
I know, what
you're
comes
hearing
first,
things.
the
Yeah,
chicken
yeah.
or the egg?
So,
And,
I mean, it doesn't cost us any money to pick somebody, right? Or-
Well, yeah, but after we pick them, we have to give them some direction.
No, and I'm assuming that, and maybe I'm getting my horse out there, but normally the board goes along with the recommendation of the review committee as far as with respect to who the architect and engineer firm's going to be. But at that point, we need to sit down and negotiate a fee. We don't have any parameters to negotiate that fee within.
Well, because we don't know if we're going to refurbish an old building or
Right.
build a new building.
Right. And we're not going to get that information
Well-
from the architect until we negotiate the fee.
Right.
They're not going to do it for no...
But then it comes right back to another issue, which is what you brought up, which is if you build a new building, there's no way it will be ready for the '04 election.
Commissioner, as
I'll
these
bring
things go,
Ben-
I seriously doubt that it'll be ready even if it's renovated.
Oh, really?
Quite candid.
Yeah, that's right, because it's been...
One way or the other, it may not be. That's
Okay.
why I think we're good, that's
But we
what
can
concerns
still
me.
have the building finished and done, and they can always move the equipment over.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
sir.
they may need this equipment to tie into the state.
No, they can do that. They can do
Yeah,
that.
but then we have to
We're gonna have to
wire
move-
this place, the old place, and then take
were-
all the wiring out or whatever, leave it, and then wire a new place. We're doing double work, so if we could do it once and have it ready,
They're already tied. This will be, I'm pretty comfortable saying this will be an internet connection, whether it be a fractional T1 or a complete T1. They're already networked, so I don't think they require any additional
well, that's not what the
capability.
letter stated that from the Board of Elections. I don't know if I have it with me, but
I think
they
that-
need a DS,
DSL?
help me, Ernie.
It's a DSL.
They already have DSL service for the Board of Election, correct? No? What are they using? Dial-up?
We're on dial-up.
They network with us now on our T1, or if we...
Okay. So if they're going to need a DSL, is that something that's very easy to move from one location to another
Yes.
without
What-
too much cost?
What about cabling, Ernie?
Ernie, would you come to the microphone, please?
We're just trying to avoid that.
Well, I know, but Hal, you know,
Everybody
he's our producer, and
Yeah.
he's going like this. Thank you.
Have you had any dialogue with the people from the Board of Elections? What type of wiring and computers will they need?
I've not been involved with this at all.
Okay. And then I understand there's training which can be done in wherever they're at, but
But yeah, they got, if they're going to put in all these new systems, they can move those systems, correct? The only thing that's a big issue is the trunk that's coming in, or what?
I have no knowledge of their requirements for this new, what you're
Oh,
talking
really?
about. I have not been brought into this.
Well, okay, let me see if I can get that. Let's try this one.
The Elyria office is currently networked. I've not been to the Lorain office.
Okay.
I assume it's the same. I know they recently got new servers.
does this equipment, we don't even know if the new voting equipment has to go tie into the state in some way.
Well, that's just that's an internet. That's just
I
a
don't know.
connection, right? If they're requiring a DSL, then is that big to move from one location to another?
No, not normally, it's not.
Okay. Well, that answered the
Okay,
question.
well-
No, that answered a question I had a year ago when we talked about this. Was I was afraid by buying this property we can combine them. I was afraid we'd incur more cost because we couldn't get them done in time for the election. That was my concern. But it sounds like the only cost we're not going to incur too much cost. It sounds like.
I think the infrastructure is already in place in each building. It just
Right.
needs some minor enhancements to be able to do more for them. But we return right back to the same situation. Quite frankly, because of the uncertainty of the scope of this work and given the diverse opinions with respect to what we're doing, we haven't really fast-tracked this program, this project. And I will definitely assuredly get that stuff to the board for next week. But you have a lot of decisions to make here, and we can't move forward without those decisions being made. And I think we all realize that there's going to be pluses and minuses on both.